And welcome to another video from the Carnal Conservative. Welcome, boys and girls. And we're going to continue on this topic of conservatism or true conservatism, what it is, what it isn't. Previous video we covered the basics. How conservatism is not based on principles per se, but on honoring the forces of family and food, and how societies tend to break down these forces and form institutions around them, and how those institutions are the ones that project the principles that best serve them. And importantly, that those institutions, from family and food, each respectively, can have principles that rub against one another, and how it is inappropriate to define a conservative based on those principles rather than the reality of promoting family and food. So, we're going to talk about the first mystery of conservatism, which is the conservatism and tolerance paradox. Now, the reason that this is important to go over is because you will hear from pretty much everyone around you, because conservatism has no institutional representation, that conservatism is innately intolerant, that they're bigoted, that they are, xenophobic. That's an interesting take, especially when you dive into this mystery. So let us go on. When two individuals from different cultures and climates meet to open communication and dialogue, it is reasonable to presume that there will be conflict. It is reasonable to presume that they both represent different societies that will have established widely different institutions with even larger differences in principles. It would be reasonable to presume that these differences might be so vast that each representative from each society would deem the other irredeemable or irreconcilable. And if either of these individuals is a leftist, progressive, or even a neocon, this will almost always be the case. And that is because when such individuals inquire, what do you believe, what are your values, explain your customs, etc., etc., they do so from the vantage of comparing each other to the principles of their respective institutions. In other words, the problem is they actually mean it, and any variance from their own principles will be seen as alien, barbaric, uncivilized, or simply problematic. However, if each society were to instead have the blessing of both being represented by true conservatives from their respective societies, the opposite occurs. And the reason for this is because, even though the words might stay the same, for true conservatives the meanings are entirely different. Whereas the first pair wanted to know, what do you believe, true conservatives are interested only in, how do you survive? Because true conservatism across all societies and all of time view themselves and even others outside of their group not as moralistic, principled paragons, but as mere humble survivors of the forces of family and food. And only the most grievous of offenses threatening those forces in their lives will be just cause to be intolerant of any other society. And that, boys and girls, is why when you meet many true conservatives who, despite being radically intolerant to changes that go against the forces of family and food, especially in changes of cultural and societal norms regarding the family and the structures of society pertaining to those, despite being radically intolerant to these changes, they will always be far more tolerant in practice than their political counterparts that claim to hold tolerance as a guiding principle. That is why conservatism in practice with other cultures and other people have a far higher chance of peace and mutual cooperation than the liberals and the neocons, who, let's face it, either genocide themselves to extinction or engage in needless and pointless conflicts across the globe because of this paradox. True conservatism is not concerned with your beliefs. True conservatism and the tolerance that we choose to exude and give one another is based on the fact that we are but humble survivors of family and food. And that, boys and girls, is the conservatism and tolerance paradox.